Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating manuscript from June 2024 that outlines a massive update to a reality management methodology a lot of you are probably already familiar with. It's been 20 years since the first transurfing books hit the shelves and became these massive global bestsellers. They've helped countless people totally transform their lives. But according to this new source material we're looking at today, the rules of the game have fundamentally changed. We're going to break down exactly how this methodology has evolved from the classic transurfing of reality into what the text is now calling transurfing of self, an approach adapted specifically for a completely new era.
So, let me start by asking you a really quick question. Have you just been feeling kind of out of sorts lately? Like maybe you've been struggling with sudden drops in mood out of nowhere, a complete lack of focus, or this heavy, unexplained mental fatigue? Well, if that sounds like you, the manuscript suggests you absolutely shouldn't be beating yourself up over it. It's not a personal failure. In fact, it asserts that this is a huge, widespread symptom right now. Literally millions of people are experiencing these exact same unexplainable ups and downs. And the source points to a very specific, collective reason for why this is happening to us.
According to the text, this collective mental fog we're all swimming in stems from a very specific transition. The manuscript posits that December 22, 2020 wasn't just, another normal date on the calendar. It actually marked a major planetary shift where the dark age of Pisces gave way to the dawn of the age of Aquarius. We are currently living right in the middle of this transition into a new reality. It actually states that the fundamental rhythms of the planet, the actual energetic rhythms that govern how our reality operates, have literally changed, shifting us entirely into what the author simply calls a new time.
Now, the source goes on to explain the biological impact of this shift, which is fascinating. Because these new planetary rhythms dictate our environment, our bodies are allegedly being forced to adapt right along with them. The manuscript explains that the parts of our DNA that were completely dormant before this new time began are suddenly being triggered to wake up. This internal biological awakening, which is essentially just your body frantically trying to match these new planetary frequencies, is cited as the precise reason our bodies and minds are experiencing such intense, unpredictable, energetic roller coasters right now.
So the absolutely crucial thing to understand here is why the old techniques for managing our lives just aren't cutting it anymore. The text introduces this concept called mountains of importance. These are essentially massive, invisible brick walls we build for ourselves. And how do we build them? Well, by uselessly fighting our past mistakes, constantly battling against our present reality, or just drowning in anxiety over a future that hasn't even happened yet. The manuscript argues that even seasoned folks who know how to manage their reality are failing right now because they're applying the tools while basically being asleep at the wheel. They're constantly building these giant mountains out of every little inconvenience instead of just setting their future in advance.
To really get why we're all falling asleep at the wheel, we have to look at the current environment. The text describes our day-to-day reality as a waking dream. And during this specific time of transition, that waking dream has gotten noticeably heavier. It's become much thicker and way more sedating, almost like walking through mud. Because of this thick mental fog, people are unknowingly functioning like totally unconscious characters in a movie, just blindly reading from a script. I mean, you might logically know you need to change your mindset, but in the heat of the moment, that heavy dream just takes over, and you react on pure autopilot until it's too late.
And that brings us to the core paradigm shift the author introduces. Listen, classical transurfing relied heavily on managing reality through the sheer power of intention. But in this new time, the source states that intention simply doesn't do the heavy lifting anymore. Why? Because the manuscript claims that right now, you only get what you match vibrationally. If your internal state doesn't match wealth or prosperity or peace, you literally just won't receive it, no matter how hard you intend for it. Therefore, the whole focus has to shift to transurfing of self, which means managing your own internal state of being, rather than exhausting yourself trying to force the external reality to bend to your will.
Okay, so to manage your state effectively, the manuscript suggests a pretty radical shift in how we actually view ourselves. Usually we identify entirely with our physical body and our restless, chattering mind, what the text refers to as the avatar or the bot. Now, when you live as the bot, you're just an unconscious character running on pure autopilot. But the text proposes that we are actually something much more. We are the spirit, or the owner. This is your higher self. It's that conscious observer standing just behind and slightly above your physical avatar. From this state of spirit, you aren't just blindly reacting to the world. You're actually watching the action unfold while actively directing it.
But here's the million-dollar question. How do you actually reach that higher state? Well, the source outlines this concept called the 0 point. Think about when you have a normal dream at night, right? Your reference point is waking life. It's that solid, real place you return to the second you open your eyes. But in waking life, when you get totally lost in the heavy fog of daily stress, where is your reference point then? The text argues that your 0 point is the literal point of your own spirit. It's this ultimate solid ground that you can learn to access and return to at any given moment, which allows you to instantly wake up from that heavy, sedating dream of everyday reality.
To make this super practical, the manuscript provides a really actionable sequence for utilizing this 0 point to dismantle those mountains of importance right in the heat of the moment. Step 1. Notice the exact second something upsets you or isn't going your way. Step 2. Instantly wake up within the waking dream by recognizing, hey, I'm reacting on autopilot right now. Step 3. Look objectively at whatever it is you're attaching so much importance to. And step 4, just deliberately let it go. By following these 4 steps, the text says you essentially take down those massive mental mountains and can walk calmly across the plain, completely in control of your own state.
According to the text, the benefits of actually doing this are just immense. When you successfully switch off that restless mind mode and step into the state of spirit as the true conscious owner of your life, the author states you gain literal access to the power of spirit. This allegedly allows you to freely manage yourself, effortlessly drop all those destructive complexes and negative programming you've been carrying, discover and choose your genuine true goals, act with total laser-focused effectiveness during crises, and ultimately truly create your own reality. It's a total reframe of how you accept and elevate yourself, flaws, and the whole shebang.
And the claims in this manuscript don't just stop at mental clarity, which is kind of wild. It suggests that this current time of transition actually offers a very unique physical window of opportunity as well. Under these new planetary conditions, the text proposes that the standard degeneration and aging of the human body can actively be turned into renewal, growth, and literal regeneration. It states that your body actually already knows this is possible and it wants it badly. But to activate this, you have to have a firm resolve to ask for it. And we're not talking about a polite little request here. It has to be a powerful, definitive intention made straight from the state of the owner.
Now, you might be listening to all this and wondering, okay, is this just some theoretical mental engineering? Well, the author makes a big point to reassure the reader here. The manuscript explains that while the key elements of this new knowledge were allegedly channeled from an information field, they were then immediately published on social media and rigorously tested and practiced by real, everyday people. The author emphasizes that the real-world feedback from these pioneer readers is the absolute ultimate guarantee and criterion for truth. They really aim to prove that these updated techniques actually bear fruit out in the real world when applied correctly.
And I think the best way to wrap up today's explainer is with this incredibly powerful piece of feedback from one of those exact pioneer readers. They wrote, "I can change my reality. I can do anything. I've recognized who I am." I mean, wow. That just perfectly encapsulates this massive transformative shift from being an unconscious reactive bot to becoming the conscious owner of your life. This manuscript presents a truly fascinating framework for navigating these crazy, turbulent times by focusing entirely inward on your state. So the ultimate question the source leaves us with today is simply this: are you ready to stop fighting the waking dream, access your 0 point, and discover your true spirit in this new time?
Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're taking a really hard look at something literally every single one of us deals with on a daily basis, and that is the crushing weight of our own problems. I know exactly how it feels. The stress is heavy, the anxiety is absolutely exhausting, and the obstacles sitting in front of you can just seem insurmountable. But what if the way we fundamentally understand our daily struggles is completely backwards? What if the obstacles aren't actually put there by the world, but are subconsciously built by us? It's a crazy thought, right? Let's get into it.
I want you to hold on to that feeling of stress for just a second, because we are going to introduce a bit of cognitive dissonance right out of the gate. Your stress, your burnout, your worry, those feelings genuinely feel terrible. They are very, very real experiences for your body and your mind. But the insights we're unpacking today suggest that the true foundation of your stress is going to completely surprise you. Okay, let's dive into this radical premise straight from the text. The author states, very bluntly, you made up your own problems. They aren't real. Now, I know the immediate objection here. You might be saying to yourself, well, I didn't invent my lack of money, or my absolutely difficult boss, or my relationship issues. And fair enough. But the text argues that while you might have earned some of your situations, the actual problem itself, the insurmountable mountain of stress, is entirely a product of your own making.
To really understand this, the author compares our waking life to being asleep in a dream. Think about the last time you had a nightmare. You were plunged headfirst into a horrific scenario, and you helplessly stewed in it. You totally believed it was real, so you handed yourself over to the script of the dream. You couldn't do a single thing about it because you literally weren't aware you were dreaming. Well, the text argues that in our waking life, we do the exact same thing. We walk into a life situation as if it were a movie plot. We just hand ourselves over to the script, and we actively co-write it by assuming things are just getting worse and worse. Now, what's really interesting about this is the sequence of events unfolding here. Something mildly unpleasant happens. You get a little upset. Then your logical mind steps in. It speculatively creates this massive problem out of the event, deciding that something must be done, and this is a total disaster. You basically sink into this waking dream. So yes, the problem eventually becomes a real, tangible experience for you, but it was actually created artificially first. And the beauty of this logic is that if it was made up, it can be unmade just as easily simply by deflating it. To really drive this home, our source material shares a brilliant metaphor. Imagine a fictional town called Sungorsk. Right in the center of this town stands a massive, radiant mountain made entirely of the sun. And the residents of this town? Well, they're snails. The story goes that a visitor notices these snails disappearing all day and coming back completely drained. He asks them what they're up to. The snails reply that every single day, from dawn until noon, they climb this massive mountain made of the sun. And then, from noon until evening, they climb all the way back down. They return exhausted in the evening. Their shells are heavy, their spirits are broken. They were just completely wasting away. The visitor looks at these exhausted snails, completely bewildered, and asks them a very simple question. Why do you climb it in the first place? Seriously, think about that for a second. The snails answer, we don't know. That's just how it's always been. Wow, this is a heavy, conceptual punch right to the gut. The visitor tells them they don't have to climb the mountain at all, and the snails are stunned, asking, wait, is that even allowed? Once they stop, their lives become easy and simple. You see, the mountain of the sun is a metaphor for our own inflated importance. We spend our entire lives utterly exhausted, fighting battles and climbing these mountains of stress, simply because we are blindly repeating a script we never even bothered to question, just because it feels familiar. Our brains totally default to these learned patterns out of habit, which traps us in a psychological comfort zone of our own making. So what exactly is the script making us climb like those snails? The text identifies these as markers. Markers are negative beliefs that bind you and limit you. Kind of think of them as zombie scripts installed during childhood, or maybe after a really harsh defeat. They sit quietly in your subconscious, acting as a hypnotic trigger. The instant someone hits that trigger, you fall right into an unthinking state and start acting out the program, pulling you instantly into the waking dream of stress. The text provides some highly relatable examples of these markers from readers. Things like, I'm wrong by default. I owe it to others. I must be better than everyone else or I'm totally worthless. I agree to unfair terms because I just can't say no. Or even, money is dirty, so it never stays in my hands. Take a second. Do any of those sound like the voice inside your own head? These are the exact scripts that inflate a simple, everyday occurrence into a massive artificial problem. And this brilliantly illustrates how easily we get manipulated. If you have a marker from childhood that says you owe everyone else, you are incredibly easy to manipulate today. All someone has to do is just remind you of that debt, and boom, you become a zombie. You fall right back into that comfortable, familiar habit of suffering, blindly climbing the mountain of the sun through a problem you've artificially allowed to be created in your mind. The trigger for these markers is usually a situation that stirs up gloom, worry, despair, or helplessness. The text notes that absolutely nothing pulls you deeper into the waking dream than negative experiences that spill over into heavy brooding. When you feel that anxiety hit, you are literally standing at a fork in the road. You can either fall asleep and start co-writing a bad movie script, or you can wake up. Here is the exact, actionable process the text outlines for waking up. First, you have to catch that heavy feeling the very moment it starts. Track your attention. Second, ask yourself critically, what am I making up right now? Am I building a mountain? And third, replace the negative belief generating that state with a positive one. If you don't track your attention, your waking dream will never become a lucid one. You have to catch yourself in the act of heavy brooding before the problem inflates.
The author makes a great point here. We always notice when someone else looks gloomy and we ask them what's wrong, but we pay zero attention to ourselves. We just suffer and stew in it. So the crucial point is that you literally have to cut the thought off at the root. When you feel the marker triggered, you stop the script. If the negative belief says you have to do something you really don't want to do, you actively ask, do I owe this? And you replace it by declaring, no, I am free. Here is another powerful example. Your childhood programming might scream at you during a challenge that you aren't capable. You catch that feeling. You ask, am I weak? And you replace it. No, strength is in me and with me. By doing this, you reclaim control of the situation. You completely deflate the fake problem before it ever has the chance to become a towering mountain. This all ties back to a concept the author calls the watchman's riddle. The answer to the riddle is, you gain freedom the moment you stop fighting your battle. We always think that achieving our goals requires this grueling, exhausting fight against a wall of obstacles. But the text argues that the wall of obstacles is built entirely by our own battle, by our own inflated sense of importance. When you stop fighting, you stop building the mountain. Now, to permanently drop our fake problems, the source text insists we have to upgrade our baseline state, purifying both body and mind. This means actively throwing out the clutter. It's not just about cutting junk food from your diet, it's about cutting junk sources of information out of your field of vision. If it's dishonest, negative, or unclean, you have to throw it out to stop polluting your mind. If you stop polluting your mind with negativity and you start catching those hypnotic triggers before they inflate, life becomes remarkably simple. You don't have to climb until you're exhausted just because that's how it's always been. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to take into the rest of your day. What mountain are you making up right now? Catch it, deflate it, and step out of the dream. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating and honestly highly specific approach to our physical well-being. We're unpacking the energetic dietary philosophy found in excerpts from the book Transurfing Yourself. It's all about what the author calls the conscious path to nutrition, and it blends physical health with some deeply metaphysical concepts. Okay, let's just dive right into it. Think about this for a second. Is it really age that inevitably drains our energy, or is it something else entirely? I mean, we all tend to accept fatigue and that midday brain fog as just a normal part of getting older, right? Well, the text we're analyzing today challenges that assumption head on. It proposes a completely different culprit for our modern exhaustion. So here's our roadmap for today. 1. The toxic overload problem. 2. What conscious eating actually is. 3. The 5 principles of cleansing. And 4. The foods that trigger regeneration. All right, Section 1, the toxic overload problem, or the aquarium of the new reality. Let's get to the bottom of why we feel so sluggish in the modern world. The author uses this really unique kind of metaphysical framing here. Think of our current environment as a new reality. Imagine it like a giant energetic aquarium filled with water that resonates at a higher, cleaner frequency. But here's the catch. To actually thrive in this new aquarium, the author argues, we urgently need to maintain and cleanse our physical bodies, which they refer to as our biosuit. Basically, if your biosuit is dirty, you can't match the resonance of the new reality. And the result? Apathy and super low energy. So the absolutely crucial point here is that according to this philosophy, the real villain isn't time. Nope. It's a concrete buildup of toxins and waste. The author asserts that toxic overload is the single biggest factor draining your energy, your willpower, and literally even your awareness. As all that waste piles up from unhealthy eating and sitting around all day, our physical battery just gets completely dragged down. And the author uses a great, really vivid example to illustrate this. Think about aging pop stars. You know exactly the ones I'm talking about. They shine so brightly with this incredible energy when they're young, just bounding all over the stage. But fast forward 20 years, and their bodies seem heavy. Their stage presence just drops off a cliff. Now, the text argues this isn't aging at all. It's the totally unglamorous buildup of toxins blocking their flow of energy. It's exactly like a battery running down. But as the source points out, when a burnout star actually cleanses their body, they start shining again. Cleansing is the ultimate recharge. Moving on to Section 2. What is conscious eating, and how we escape the extremes? Let's look at how we actually build this into our daily habits. You see, most people fall into two dangerous extremes. On one side, you've got mindless eating. This is sleepwalking through the supermarket, loading up on synthetics that just fog up your consciousness. The author actually aggressively compares this to livestock at a trough. But on the exact opposite side, the author warns equally against strict diet systems. The text claims these hyper-strict systems are inevitably revised, they lack reliable, systematic knowledge, and honestly, they just create unhealthy fanaticism. Even the author, who eats a mostly raw diet, strongly warns against the fanaticism of strict raw food fads. So if both extremes are terrible, what exactly is the conscious path? Well, the source lays out 3 foundational rules. Step 1. Take an actual interest in your food. Study its properties instead of just blindly consuming it. Step 2. Seek out truly natural products. The author insists on absolutely no GMOs, no yeast, and no synthetics. And step 3. Eat as varied a diet as possible. Think of your body as a complex biochemical plant. It needs a wide array of raw materials to function properly. The whole key here is using your own intuition to extract the actual benefits from what you eat. Which brings us to Section 3, the 5 principles of cleansing, helping the body help itself. Because if we're a complex biochemical plant, we really need the operating manual, right? The author's main overarching principle for this entire section is surprisingly simple. Your body already cleanses itself, as long as you stop clogging it up. You don't necessarily have to force a cleanse. You just need to create the baseline conditions for the body to do its natural job and straighten out your personal energy field. And here are the 5 highly structured lifestyle pillars required to create those perfect conditions. First, healthy eating, which we just covered. Second, healthy movement, which must be varied and actually enjoyable, not just some chore you dread. Third, healthy sleep, emphasizing a strict, consistent lights-out time. Fourth, healthy drinking, focusing heavily on a specific formula for clean water. And finally, number 5, a healthy psyche. The author stresses that you must actively cut off sources of negativity. Why? Because mental junk clogs you up exactly like physical junk does. But wait a second, because right here is where the text introduces a really surprising, unconventional claim. The author states emphatically, water alone won't wash you clean. Now, obviously, movement and hydration are vital for blood and lymph drainage, for sure, but the source argues that a lot of toxins simply aren't water-soluble. So to get those non-water-soluble toxins out, the author points to a crucial and often totally overlooked third drainage channel, bile. According to the text, you actively need to stimulate your bile flow, especially first thing in the morning. The author suggests starting your day with hot water sipped slowly, or even adding a piece of pure cacao butter to your morning tea or coffee for this huge burst of energy. They also highly recommend specific healthy fats like flaxseed or pumpkin seed oil to, and I love this phrasing, clean out your blood vessels the way strong chemicals clean out plumbing. All right, Section 4, foods that trigger regeneration, and the incredible power of sprouts. We've talked about clearing the waste. Now, how do we build our energy back up? The text places an immense priority on germinated seeds, or sprouts. It elevates them to absolute superfood status, claiming they possess colossal potential. But why? Well, because during germination, the starch, proteins, and fats begin breaking down, meaning the seed essentially does all the heavy lifting of digestion for you. But more importantly for the author's whole philosophy, living sprouts carry the active bioenergy and information of life just coming into being. So here's the author's ultimate regeneration menu, complete with some fascinating and, admittedly, highly metaphysical claims. Wheat, they claim, patches the biofield and repairs malfunctions. Barley is highlighted as a rich source of silicone for your bones and hair. Buckwheat is specifically claimed to kill cancer cells while acting as an active sorbent to remove waste. Black sesame is praised as the best source of protein and calcium. Alfalfa is huge for the nervous system due to its potassium and magnesium. And finally, chlorella and spirulina are described as this relic vitamin complex with a molecular structure nearly identical to human hemoglobin. And the author doesn't just stop at sprouts. Here are a few more everyday superfoods they recommend to clear blockages and raise your overall life tone. We've got kelp for essential reagents, pumpkin seeds and black cumin, which are praised for their triple power immunity and detox effects. Fermented vegetables are listed as absolutely essential for daily gut hygiene. Parsnip root is literally referred to as Russian ginseng. And lion's mane mushroom gets a special shout out for its ability to synthesize new neurons. But out of all of these, the author places incredibly specific emphasis on live wheat sprouts. They're presented as the ultimate bioenergy food.
The text insists they must be eaten raw, and you have to chew them thoroughly into this soft mush to actually release their healing strength and bioenergy. In fact, the author notes they used to eat literally nothing but a cup of wheat sprouts for lunch for a year and a half while writing their books. And get this, they state they supposedly received this specific instruction from above. Now, naturally, a diet this heavily focused on wheat raises a massive modern question, right? What about gluten? Well, the author addresses this head-on. They claim that during the germination process, the gluten and starch break down into simple sugars, polysaccharides, and oligosaccharides. Basically, they assert that there is essentially zero gluten left in sprouted grain. Ultimately, what this all brilliantly illustrates is that for the author, this whole philosophy isn't just about losing a few pounds or the same tired old cliché of a healthy lifestyle. No, it is a commitment to a totally higher quality of life and energy. It's about consciously choosing foods that resonate higher, actively supporting your biosuit, so you can navigate this new reality without the fog and fatigue that drags so many people down. Which leaves us with this final thought. Based on the philosophy we've just explored together, are you sleepwalking through your meals like livestock at a trough? Or, starting with your very next meal, how will you step onto the conscious path to nutrition? Think about your biosuit, think about your energy levels, and ask yourself, what are you using to recharge your battery today? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope it gave you something fascinating to chew on.
You know that feeling when you're just completely weighed down by your own thoughts? Like you can't see clearly, you can't make a decision to save your life, and that mental fog is just totally paralyzing? Well, in today's explainer, we're diving into some absolutely fascinating source material that argues this fog isn't actually just in your head. It's literally trapped in your physical body. And the way out? It's through movement. So let's get into it.
Here is our quick roadmap for today. We're going to start with the illusion of the mountain, then move into unblocking body and mind, look at the principles of effective movement, explore moving your energy, and finally talk about how to skip thinking and start doing.
All right, Section 1, the illusion of the mountain. Let's talk about the biggest obstacle we build in our own minds.
So the source material defines this concept called the mountain. And it's basically when we subjectively pile up all this artificial importance onto our everyday affairs and goals, places where, objectively speaking, there really isn't any. It's a great way to understand how we create this immense, crushing mental weight that traps us. The text says it's kind of like being a character in a movie that's already been filmed. You're just helplessly following this really stressful script, totally weighed down by this massive obstacle that, frankly, you built all by yourself.
But you can break free. And the text gives us a very literal 3-step process to do just that. First up, wake up when your activator fires. That just means catching yourself right in that exact moment you feel that heavy psychological weight drop on you. Step 2, look closely and see exactly where you've artificially inflated the importance of the situation. And step 3, deliberately drop it. Just let it go. The source claims that if you can truly realize there is no mountain, the obstacles in front of you literally collapse. But, and this is a big but, to actually believe there's no mountain, you need a free mind and high energy. Because if you're exhausted and loaded down, that mountain is going to look terrifyingly real.
Moving on to Section 2, unblocking body and mind. This is where we connect that mental fog directly to your physical state.
The source makes this brilliant argument that mental overload is basically a form of informational intoxication, and it completely dampens your energy. Think of it like a literal clogged pipe with a super narrow opening. When a stressful problem pops up, certain muscles in your body instinctively clench up. And the crazy thing is, they can just stay frozen like that. These psychosomatic clamps literally block your energy flow. And you can't just think your way out of a clogged pipe, right? You have to physically flush it out.
I absolutely love this quote from the text. Nonsense builds up in your head because of inaction. That really hits the nail on the head. Mental fatigue isn't just a psychological issue. It's a direct symptom of physical stagnation. All that anxiety and mental nonsense, it grows right out of that artificially inflated importance we just talked about. And the absolute best way to dissolve it is through physical action.
Look at the comparison here. A physically weak or stagnant person often ends up tense, maybe a bit aggressive, feeling this constant need to prove something. They're literally trapped in those psychosomatic clamps. But a strong person, someone whose energy is actually flowing freely, they tend to be calm, good-natured, and grounded. It's a two-way street between your physical body and your mental state. Your body reacts to every single excess of the mind, which means your physical development and your mental clarity are totally intertwined.
Okay, Section 3, Principles of Effective Movement. Let's look at the actual, actionable physical solution here.
To clear out that clogged pipe and get your mind back online, the text is super clear. Active, effective movement has to be your absolute first priority. Without movement, life just kind of fades. Movement is what pumps all the drainage fluids in your body. The blood, the lymph, the bile. It flushes out everything that's excess and spent. Literally, it is the only way to clear out the stagnation and those energetic blocks we were just looking at.
Now, really important distinction here. Don't confuse this with some grueling, bone-crushing workout. Effective movement is about enjoyable, moderate loads, not punishing hard labor. Hard labor is exhausting. It's a chore. It's great for athletic achievement, sure, but the results are temporary. Effective movement, though, that's for lifelong health and vitality. It uses moderate loads, it's actually fun, and the whole goal is to develop your body harmoniously without committing violence against yourself.
The text gives us some really specific guidelines for this. Basically, you should always feel a pleasant sensation from the effort. So keep your movement varied. Make it enjoyable, not a chore. Use moderate loads and just increase them gradually over time. Also, when you make an effort, exhale intensely from deep in your chest. The text calls this opening the windows to release tension. You also want to focus on decompressing the spine. Think seated leg presses instead of a super heavy barbell squat. And crucially, always follow your effort with relaxation. Actually, let's double down on that last point. Relaxation matters more than effort. This is probably the biggest surprise for most people. True development requires you to deliberately relax your muscles between efforts so they don't just reflexively lock right back up. Like, if you're doing rapid-fire push-ups, barely bending your arms and never letting the muscle release, you are literally just building more tension. You've got to take a minute between sets. Drop your head, shake out your arms. Over time, you'll actually learn to relax your muscles deliberately with just a single thought.
Section 4, moving your energy. This takes physical exercise and adds a really fascinating energetic layer to it.
The source reveals something pretty profound here. Where your attention goes, your energy and your blood actually follow. This means you can use what the text calls phantom movements to heal yourself. You aren't just moving your physical limbs, you can literally move your energy. Just by directing your attention and intention, you can stroke and pump your own energy flow. Think about it. If your mind is super clouded, it's highly likely the muscles in your neck and collarbone area are stretched incredibly tight, literally blocking blood flow to your brain.
So, how do we fix that? By triggering just a light, minimal tension, especially in the back of the neck, you can actively stroke and pump your energy on the inhale and exhale. The text calls these homeopathic doses of tension, meaning tiny, minimal amounts. You can literally just sit on your couch, tilt your chin up slightly, clasp your hands behind your head, and subtly move your attention up and down your cervical spine. The physical tension is barely there, but the therapeutic effect is massive. You're basically giving your own energetic system a deep self-massage, healing the body and the mind at the exact same time.
And finally, Section 5. Skip thinking, start doing. Because let's be real, the ultimate mental block is just figuring out how to start.
This is the hardest part, right? How do you actually get up off the couch? Well, the source poses a brilliant question. Are you trying to negotiate with a lazy mind? Because if you are, you've already lost. When it comes to starting a new physical habit, our minds are exceptionally lazy.
The advice here is brutally simple. Skip the negotiation entirely and jump straight into action. Don't think it over, don't plan it out, and whatever you do, don't sit there trying to talk yourself into it. The second you try to negotiate, your mind will instantly hand you a massive, super convincing pile of reasons to do absolutely nothing. You're never going to strike a fair deal with it, so just bypass that stage altogether.
To start running, you just have to start running. I mean, it sounds almost annoyingly simple, but it's so true. When you stop letting your mind build excuses, you reclaim your power. The source points out that pure spirit doesn't reason, it just acts. You really have to catch that state where you just shut your mind up, detach from that heavy, stressful script of your life, and simply let your intention physically move you forward.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with the final thought to mull over as you step away from the screen and, hopefully, into action. What artificial mountain is weighing you down today? And more importantly, what simple, enjoyable movement are you going to take to collapse it? Remember that mental fog isn't a life sentence, it's just a clogged pipe, and it's waiting for you to move and clear it out. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer. Welcome to the explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here. Today, we are diving deep into something completely fascinating: reality management. Specifically, we're going to explore a foundational concept from the philosophy of transurfing.
all about how to actually take control of your reality, rather than just passively drifting through it. You know that feeling of living on autopilot? Like you're just stuck in a loop of reacting to whatever life throws at you? Well, this explainer is built exactly for you. We're going to break down the concise technique for beginners, a highly practical method to completely flip the script on your daily experience. Let's get started.
Let's kick things off with a simple, incredibly relatable question. Why isn't everything the way I want it? It's such a fundamental thing to ask, isn't it? But man, it is also incredibly frustrating. According to the source material we're looking at today, this is the biggest question that secretly torments us. We put in the work, we really hope for the best, and yet, things just don't line up. Acknowledging that problem is our very first step today. We need to figure out exactly why this gap exists between what we want and what we get, and more importantly, how to actually fix it.
So here is our roadmap for today. 1. Waking up from the script. 2. Entering the state of presence. 3. The concise technique explained. 4. Rules of reality setting. And finally, 5. Your new daily practice.
Let's jump right into section 1, waking up from the script.
Okay, before we can even think about changing our reality, we have to recognize a hard truth. Right now, we aren't the ones controlling it. We are essentially just living out an external script. The author uses this wildly vivid metaphor for this. Because we aren't actively setting our reality, we just live inside it like snails in an aquarium, right? We absolutely think we are making independent, conscious choices, but we are so completely gripped by the illusion of reality that we don't even notice we're just playing a captive character in a movie. The script is driving the bus. If you keep losing track of your attention throughout the day, it's not just you being absent-minded. That is literally the script taking over.
And this brings us to a massive critical difference. On one side, you have being asleep. Your attention is totally absorbed in whatever drama is happening. You're completely driven by the script, acting essentially like a puppet on a string. But on the other side, you have walking alive. This is where you detach from the script. You manage your own attention, you become an insider who is actually aware of the game, and most crucially, you finally begin setting your own reality.
Because of that, you have to start relentlessly asking yourself this one specific review question. Is it controlling me, or am I controlling it? The author points out that our old programs and habits, they just cling to us. Think about it. You might still be wearing a terribly uncomfortable pair of shoes just because you bought them. Or you're obsessing over a flashy sports car you don't even actually want, simply because a commercial planted that desire in your head. You have to audit your life. Aggressively ask yourself this question to find out which desires are actually yours.
Moving right along to section 2, entering the state of presence.
Here's the deal. You absolutely cannot change your reality if you are still fast asleep inside the movie. No way. To force yourself to wake up, you need to build the habit of asking conscious questions, kind of like a curious kid does. How do I feel? What am I sensing right now? Wait, why is that? What's weighing on me? The moment you ask these questions, your attention instantly snaps away from that external script and right back into your own center. You short-circuit the autopilot and bring yourself fully into the present moment.
So, what exactly is presence? Think of it as becoming a covert observer. You are fully capable of managing yourself and your reality because you keep bringing your attention back to your own center. You're observing yourself and observing reality simultaneously. And it's called a covert observer for a reason. You don't want to draw a bunch of unnecessary attention to the fact that you're awake, right? You just blend in. You pretend to be asleep like everyone else while quietly staying totally aware and pulling the strings of your own reality.
And let me tell you, the results of doing this are incredible. There's a reader testimonial in the source material where someone describes practicing presence on the subway and at the mall, and they said it literally turned waking life into a lucid dream. They felt this overwhelming, amazing sense of absolute freedom. And the craziest part? People around them actually started reacting differently. Total strangers were glancing at them with this weird warmth and curiosity, subconsciously sensing that this person had stepped out of the script and finally come alive.
Which brings us to section 3, the concise technique explained.
All right, so we know how to wake up, but how do we actually go about setting reality? It's a very clear 4-stage process. Step 1, react to a trigger. The second something puts you on edge, instead of spiraling into anxiety, use that exact feeling as a giant alarm bell to wake yourself up. Step 2, ask those conscious questions we just talked about. Where am I? What's bothering me? Step 3, refuse to go along with the negative reality. Turn on your critical thinking and flat out reject the script's drama. And finally, step 4, set your own reality. This is where you activate the concise. The concise is essentially an energetic focal point,
almost like a subtle braid of energy hanging right behind your shoulder blades. You focus there, and then you clearly declare the intention for the outcome you actually want.
This hits on what the author calls literally the most useful habit you could ever develop. Don't want something from reality. Set your own reality. When you just want something, you are passively hoping and expecting. You're just spinning your wheels in the mud. Instead, you use the concise technique to purposefully light up a target frame in the approaching future. You aren't desperately wrestling with the reality that's already in front of you. You are simply setting the frame for the next scene so the script starts working for you.
You might be wondering, does this actually work? The reader confessions we have in the source text are just fantastic. Take this one. A reader was exhausted after a long shift, used the concise to request a parking spot in a notoriously packed square, and literally drove straight into an open space that was basically waiting for them. Another reader set an intention for a totally out-of-the-blue kiss from a stranger, and it manifested through a completely unexpected visit from his wife's relative. And my personal favorite, someone missed their airport check-in. Instead of panicking, they activated the concise, let it go, and hopped in a taxi to go home. Halfway there, they get a text. Their flight was magically delayed by 3 hours, and they made it. It's quiet, it's subtle, but it absolutely works.
Okay, moving on to Section 4, Rules of Reality Setting. Now, as magical as all of that sounds, there are hard boundaries here. Since we're focusing on the technique for beginners, you really need to know when and why the concise is going to fail you, so you don't burn all your energy for nothing. So, here are the main exceptions. First, the concise will fail if you try to change a reality that has already physically happened. You can only set the approaching future, not the past. It also won't work if you're trying to set a shared reality that heavily depends on a bunch of other people. It fails if you try to set your entire massive, complex life script all at once, instead of just focusing on a single target frame. And lastly, and this is huge, it will absolutely fail if you try to set a specific person's behavior.
Let's actually dive a little deeper into that last rule because it's crucial. You can set reality, but you cannot set people. Specific people have their own scripts, they have their own intentions. Trying to control them is literally as pointless as trying to change a character's lines in a movie you're watching at the theater. The film is already rolling. So instead of trying to force someone to act a certain way, the text highly advises setting an abstract relationship instead. Set a general attitude, something like, people feel warmly toward me. And if you ignore this rule, well, you might end up experiencing what we can call the sunburn effect. There is this wildly funny but totally cautionary tale in the text about a reader who was on vacation in Thailand. She got gripped by jealousy, completely lost her presence, and forcefully set this intention. I want everyone to look only at me, not at my husband. Well, guess what? Reality delivered. She instantly got this horrific, bright red sunburn. Her face swelled up like a balloon, and suddenly, absolutely everyone, locals and tourists alike, was staring at her like she was an alien. So yeah, it's a funny story, but it's a huge reminder that setting poorly thought-out intentions about other people's attention can and will backfire on you.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, your new daily practice.
So how do we take all these concepts and turn them into things we can actually do today? The source material points out something really interesting. When you're in a physical dream at night, you have a starting point, the waking world, to compare it to. But in real life, we usually lack a reference point to realize we're asleep. So you have to create a virtual starting point for your intention. The author recommends a very physical trigger. Just write, "I will remember" on a sticky note and put it right by your bed. When you wake up, that note is the very first thing you see, and it forces a double awakening. You wake up from your physical sleep, and then you immediately wake up from the waking dream, stepping straight into presence.
Here is your rapid-fire beginner checklist to get started. Number 1, leave that "I will remember" note by your bed for your daily awakening. Number 2, make it a point every morning to track your state and intentionally wake yourself up using triggers throughout the day. Number 3, practice the concise technique on really simple, low-stakes things at first. We're talking getting a green light at an intersection or finding a parking spot. Keep it super simple. And number 4, try the 2 notebooks technique. Keep a morning notebook where you write a page of declarations, basically what reality you're setting for the day. Then keep an evening notebook to jot down confirmations of any progress, literally no matter how small. It really helps stabilize the chaotic flow of your thoughts. If you take away just one thing from this entire explainer, make it this. Whatever reel is loaded into your projector is the movie you are going to get in your life. If you check out and don't manage your attention, reality runs wild and feeds you the default script. But when you actively wake up, take back your attention, and purposefully set your target frames, you become the one choosing the reel.
And that brings us to a final, slightly provocative thought I want to leave you with today. You are present here, checking out this explainer, But are you really here? Like, in this exact second, who is actually managing your attention? Is it you, or is it the script? The strings controlling you are surprisingly easy to snap, but you have to be the one to actually do it. So wake up, grab hold of your kazitsa, and start setting your own reality. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I seriously can't wait to see what reality you choose to set next. What if I told you that right now, like literally right this second, as you're taking this in, you might actually be asleep? And I don't mean napping in your bed, I mean fast asleep in your actual reality. So what would it mean to truly wake up? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving deep into some absolutely profound concepts from the Reality Transurfing and Tafty materials. We're going to figure out what it actually means to master your attention while becoming attention itself.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. First, we'll hit the 3 levels of awakening. Second, we're going to meet the silent observer. Third, we'll look at what spirit actually feels like. And finally, we'll wrap up with a very practical technique of attention.
Think about lucid dreaming for a second. You know how in an ordinary dream, you might suddenly go, wait a minute, I'm dreaming, and boom, suddenly you can control the whole thing. Well, let's flip that on its head. What if you're currently just acting on autopilot right now? What if you're asleep in the waking dream? The source material really pushes us to ask if we're just playing an unconscious character in the script of our daily lives, blindly following a plot we absolutely did not write.
All right, Section 1, the 3 levels of awakening. So, to break free from that autopilot script, we have to climb a very specific ladder of awareness. Step 1 is level I, which is awakening within sleep, basically your standard lucid dreaming. Then, step 2 is level 2, or awakening within the waking dream. The text calls this presence. It's where you actually notice what your attention is doing during your day, and you take control of it. But then, there's this massive leap to step 3, level 3, awakening in spirit. This is where you level up to an entirely new dimension of perception. You aren't just controlling your attention anymore, you are literally becoming attention itself.
Now, the sources point out a pretty major distinction here. Classical transurfing kind of operates at a level where you're indirectly managing a dream within a dream. But this level 3 state of spirit, which is a core part of the Tafty materials, allows you to shift your attention directly into the space of variance. So instead of just managing reality from the sidelines, you are directly setting it. You become the architect.
Moving right along, Section 2, Meet the Silent Observer. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is we have to ask, who exactly is left when all the everyday layers of your personality and your physical avatar just fall away? There is a really sharp contrast here between simply watching your attention and actually being it. See, the witness is kind of like a sentry on a watchtower, right? It's a tracking function keeping an eye on where your mind wanders off to. But attention itself is when you, the owner, actually merge with that tower. You're no longer managing things from the outside looking in. You assemble into yourself to observe as attention.
And when you do that, when you become attention itself, all those everyday layers, the roles you play, the masks you wear, they all just fall away. And what is left isn't just some abstract philosophical construct. The text actually describes it as a genuine spark of the Creator. It's your true essence, stripped all the way down to a completely silent observer.
The source describes this pretty profound process as assembling into yourself. By locking your attention onto itself, you stop being this fragmented, isolated character. Instead, you start seeing and acting as an element of the universal consciousness fractal. It's kind of like a tree. A single branch resembles the whole tree. In this state, you merge with power itself, because you realize, with just absolute awe, that you are a connected branch of that massive, infinite, universal whole.
Which brings us to Section 3. What does spirit feel like?
Now, the author does warn us that these concepts lie way beyond our logical, everyday mind, but they can be deeply understood through the first-hand experiences of actual practitioners. Like one practitioner simply states, "I am everything and nothing at once." Wow. It's this profound sensation of just dropping into eternity. In this state, practitioners describe feeling like their physical body has literally no boundaries. The body feels like a mere tool, and they exist entirely as pure space and consciousness.
Another practitioner beautifully describes it as a feeling from childhood when you're not burdened by anything and simply live and enjoy what's happening. I mean, think about how freeing that is.
This state completely strips away all the heavy rules, the limits, and those relentless adulthood problems we all deal with. Paying taxes, answering endless emails, sitting in gridlock traffic. It strips all of that away and returns you to a state where the world just feels incredibly vibrant, kind, and fully alive. Essentially, this gives you the chance to become pure consciousness, totally free from the limits and burdens of a personality. It brings such a deep, unshakable peacefulness. In fact, one practitioner eloquently described it as a silence so deep that it lets you hear the rustle of the morning stars.
But hey, this isn't just about experiencing some passive, quiet peace. Listen to this description. When I am attention itself, power starts to fill me, the divine absolute. That is absolutely huge. Entering this state provides this brief but incredibly intense connection with external intention. It's a moment of silent, unbiased power where you literally become a true vector of will.
And this brilliantly illustrates our final part, Section 4, the technique of attention.
All right, the source gives us a very specific physical technique channeled through Tafty for actually gathering your spirit, and I'm going to guide you through it right now. Step 1, stand up straight, tilt your head slightly down, and as you exhale, imagine sending a beam of attention directly into the floor at a 45-degree angle. And no, not literal laser beams shooting from your eyes, just your intense focus. Step 2, as you inhale, draw that beam back into your eyes while simultaneously lifting your head to look straight ahead. And step 3, hold this position for at least 2 seconds, and then just simply release your eyes and your attention.
It's right there, in that brief moment of holding the beam, that your attention gets locked onto itself. For those 2 seconds of practice, your mind will go completely silent. You won't be thinking about what's for dinner or what you have to do tomorrow. Your attention will simply be contemplating itself. So the crucial point here is understanding the massive benefits you get from this brief state of control. By practicing this, the text claims you'll feel a true unity with the whole universe. You'll connect with external intention. You will actually become the architect of your reality. It allows you to freely drop those destructive programs and complexes we all carry around, and you'll be briefly filled with the energy of the absolute. Talk about a powerful tool for transformation, right?
Ultimately, it all comes down to deciding exactly how you want to experience your world. We've explored the ladder of awareness, the true nature of the silent observer, and the exact physical technique you need to gather your spirit. So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Are you ready to use your newfound attention technique to wake up from the script of daily life, stop playing the unconscious character, and finally become the architect?
Welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we're impartially breaking down a highly specific framework for optimizing your physical vitality. We're diving into a fascinating source text that outlines something the author calls effective nutrition. And honestly, it's a blueprint designed not just for basic health, but for actively navigating and resisting what the text refers to as the matrix. So buckle up.
Okay, let's dive right into this really fascinating premise. The text we're analyzing asks us to consider a pretty massive question. What if your daily food choices could actually raise your baseline vitality enough to fulfill your life's mission? It argues that self-development and even finding your core purpose are directly tied to how you fuel your physical body. It's not just about surviving, it's about optimizing your reality.
We're going to journey through this text's unique biochemical blueprint today. We'll hit 5 key areas. First, nutrition for the transition. Second, power from the ocean. Third, everyday smart healers. Fourth, the anti-aging toolkit. And finally, optimizing the brain. Let's get into it. Starting with Part 1, Nutrition for the Transition. So, the crucial point the text makes right off the bat is that our modern world is a technogenic environment. Basically, the author claims that standard supermarket produce is largely unnatural. It's nutritionally hollow because of depleted soils and heavy chemical farming. Because of this, we're looking at nutrition in a totally different way. We're not just trying to get by here. The idea is to deliberately choose superfoods that support intense cellular regeneration, which meaningfully raises your overall quality of life.
Moving on to Section 2, Power from the Ocean.
To counter those depleted terrestrial soils we just talked about, the text points us directly to the ocean for our foundational, cleanest nutrients. The author suggests that sea vegetables, particularly kelp or laminaria, act as this ultimate vitamin rescue. You see, because the ocean is relatively shielded from modern farming chemicals, sun-dried kelp delivers a full set of vital minerals. The text outlines how it fixes malfunctions in the body, everything from removing heavy metal salts to balancing cholesterol and even renewing the blood with oxygen. The author actually recommends chewing sun-dried kombu leaves whole as a snack or grinding it up to use as a daily salt substitute. Pretty wild, right?
Now, before we look at the next ocean superfood, we absolutely need to understand a specific term used heavily in the text: adaptogen. The author defines it as a general tonic that raises the body's resistance and resilience to unfavorable environmental conditions. Basically, it acts as both a stimulant and a massive immune booster. This definition is super important because it perfectly illustrates the framework's core goal: building a physical body that can actively resist external stressors.
And that brings us to a truly fascinating creature highlighted in the text: the sea urchin. Get this, sea urchins essentially do not biologically age. They only die from external causes. The text points to their reproductive organ, commonly called Rho, as a powerful adaptogen that's totally on par with ginseng. The author highly recommends it because of its massive vitamin B12 content, its ability to stimulate blood formation, and its profound vitality-boosting properties for absolutely everyone. Let's look at a very practical application straight from the text. The author calls fucus the tsar of seaweed, noting that its vitamin content actually outdoes regular kelp. To make it palatable and highly absorbable, the text provides a specific daily recipe. You take 100 grams of crushed fucus in a half-liter jar. Add a coarsely grated onion and 4 to 5 finely grated garlic cloves. Pour in 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, a tablespoon of cedar oil, top it up with 400 milliliters of water, and give it a good stir. By keeping this in the fridge and taking a few tablespoons every single day, the author claims you are literally flooding your cells with a highly bioavailable adaptogen. Though with all that raw garlic and vinegar, you're definitely going to want a breath mint afterward.
All right, let's transition to Section 3, Everyday Smart Healers.
Stepping away from the ocean, the author also highlights specific terrestrial foods that act with incredible precision once they're inside our bodies. Take turmeric, for instance, specifically its active compound, curcumin. The author uses this brilliant metaphor, calling it a smart doctor. According to the source, turmeric essentially finds problems in your body entirely on its own and takes care of them. It's highlighted for normalizing bile flow, acting as a broad-spectrum antioxidant, and uniquely improving cerebral circulation, which actively boosts your cognitive ability.
Next up is pumpkin, which the text amusingly describes as terrifyingly healthy. It's specifically dubbed food for transurfers, which is a nod to the author's broader philosophy of reality management. But why pumpkin? Well, beyond having way more beta-carotene than carrots and providing vital liver support, pumpkin is credited with cleansing the body, balancing the nervous system, and sharpening attention. And that's absolutely crucial for managing daily stress.
The text also makes a really sharp distinction between cultivated and wild berries. While standard store-bought cultivated blueberries are perfectly fine and beneficial, the author strongly urges readers to hunt down the wild forest bilberry. The text asserts that its scientifically confirmed superior healing properties beat out almost any other commercially farmed berry. It has superior antioxidant power, lowers blood pressure, and, here's a surprisingly specific claim, chewing fresh wild bilberries regularly during their season can actively remove dental tartar.
For daily fat and brain support, the text absolutely crowns macadamia as the king of nuts. What makes it so essential in this blueprint is a unique compound called palmitoleic acid, which the author claims literally protects brain cells from degenerative processes like dementia. Plus, it's packed with phosphorus, manganese, and silicon. Eaten in small amounts daily, it's said to rejuvenate skin at the cellular level and flood your skeletal system and cartilage with profound strength.
This brings us right into Section 4, the Anti-Aging Toolkit.
Now we're getting into the deep biochemistry of the text. The author impartially critiques strict, fanatical, raw food diets here. While acknowledging that raw, fruitarian diets often yield super-inspiring early results, the text points out that many prominent raw foodists ultimately just experience ordinary aging and wrinkles like anyone else. Why? Because they lack full amino acid profiles. The argument here is that the human body is a complex biochemical plant. To synthesize collagen and maintain actual youth, this plant demands a diverse set of reagents, including seafood and eggs that a purely plant-based diet might be missing. To keep this biochemical plant running smoothly, the text identifies a core anti-aging trio: collagen, taurine, and coenzyme Q10. Now, the author notes that our bodies naturally produce less and less of these as we cross into our 50s and 60s, so we have to deliberately source them.
For collagen, which forms 70% of our skin and prevents wrinkles, the text specifically points out that nothing on Earth contains more of it than fish skin. Taurine protects our stem cells, and Q10 is highlighted as the ultimate catalyst for producing ATP energy for every single cell.
Let's zoom in on taurine for a second. According to recent scientific research cited in the source text, allowing your taurine levels to drop brings on an absolute cascade of systemic failures. I mean, it's a conditionally essential amino acid, and lacking it can lead to diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, widespread inflammation, liver disease, and obviously accelerated aging. But fortunately, we can totally replenish our taurine levels. And see how this all connects back to our earlier section? The highest concentrations of taurine are almost entirely found in ocean-based foods. We're talking shrimp, squid, scallops, and crab, plus cod, redfish, tuna, and sea vegetables like chlorella and spirulina. Oh, and you can also find it in eggs and cheese.
Finally, we reach the apex of the author's nutritional philosophy in Section 5, Optimizing the Brain.
Here, the text introduces a really fascinating concept that it calls the matrix. In this framework, the matrix is basically a systemic force that actively thrives when people are depressed, apathetic, and just lacking energy. Therefore, protecting yourself and maintaining healthy dopamine production isn't just about feeling good on a Tuesday. The author frames it as an actual act of mental resilience, a way of resisting a system that wants you running on empty.
So how do we fuel the mind to combat this apathy? The source text points to a few specific tools. The author suggests supplements like L-tyrosine, an amino acid that's crucial if you're dealing with persistent depression, and resveratrol, a powerful antioxidant. But, and this is a big but, the text insists that food and supplements alone won't solve everything. The single most effective remedy for a depressed mind, according to this blueprint, is enjoyable, physical activity outdoors in nature, like cycling or skiing, which naturally restores your dopamine.
And honestly, this quote beautifully summarizes the author's entire approach to brain health. Deliberately seek out pleasure. Alongside all these highly specific superfoods and ocean minerals, the text commands you to literally make it a goal to enjoy your life. Enjoyable time spent, engaging hobbies, good food, these aren't just nice-to-haves. They are framed as essential biochemical necessities for triggering dopamine and keeping your brain out of a state of apathy.
As we wrap up this explainer, the core takeaway from the source text is super clear. Nutrition can be a highly targeted tool. So, the question is, will you continue eating merely to survive, or will you use this biochemical blueprint to actively optimize your reality? Think about how you can implement these specific ocean adaptogens, those terrestrial smart healers, and those brain fuels. The author's blueprint is an invitation to stop just getting full and start elevating your everyday existence. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll catch you in the next one.